Hello and welcome to Artist Talk, the show in which we meet and speak with various artists who has a deep roots in dance and moving body art forms. My name is Anton Malbauer. I'm a dancer, choreographer, and a founder of Deep Dive Dance Platform, which is hosting this series of interviews. Before we move on, please consider subscribing to this channel, hitting the like button, or turning on notifications. This way, you won't miss any of our new episodes. Today, our special guest is talented, exciting, and award-winning dancer and choreographer Jill Crovisier. Many of her work claim international recognition at prestigious choreography competitions and festivals.
Hello, and thank you so much for the invitation. I feel very honored.
How did you discover dance in you?
Well, I've been dancing since a very young child. I grew up in a very colorful and open-minded house where a lot of different cultures were present. And dance in that way and music was always present, like we used to dance around flamenco, whatever, all these kind of things with my brothers and my mother, and everyone was around. And I was always very active also in sports and this kind of. And when I was 8, I went to the conservatory in Eschweiler. So I started with ballet, and then from that moment on, slowly this passion was growing inside of me. And then I was very lucky to have also the Grand Theatre of Luxembourg here, and my mom would take me there to see shows. So I saw like fantastic pieces and dancers. This is how it slowly came into my life. And I always remember when I went to those performances that I was sitting there and I was having this sensation of being one of those dancers, and I went out like shaking in my body, being like very excited about what I saw. And I always analyzed everything, like the body of the dancers, the music, the structure piece. It was a very fantastic journey in that sense. And and around 15, 16, things got a bit more serious, and I really have decided then to become like professional in the dance field. Yes.
After you graduated from Conservatory of Music in Luxembourg, you deepened your study further, and you traveled to many countries to do so. Why?
So I was kind of very lucky. I think it was a thing about time and just being at the right moment, on the right timing. When I was 16, I got selected by the British Council of Arts to join a summer education project in China. So I went out of Europe like alone to go there, and that was the first time I left Luxembourg. Like I went out to the wide world like at the age of 16, and from that moment on, like I think that was a big click, and really had this great experience up road, and I met these fantastic dancers and people that were so inspiring. And not only the dance itself, just the humans and life in general. I believe since then, like I was always on the road somehow. I don't know, it was like a coincidence. There was always this desire to discover so much and discover the world, and through this journey also discover myself. Yes, it was really nice, and I also feel that I was very privileged, like to be a white woman coming from a country like Luxembourg, holding this passport that really opens the door outside. I just got this huge chance to go out there, and then it never stopped till now, actually. Yes.
Yeah. What challenges have you faced as a young dancer when you started your career?
Sometimes I have to laugh and smile when I think back, and I was like, oh my God, what could have done differently? But I think that my younger ages were the most difficult, probably. Like when I went to school, I always was, I didn't have so much confidence. I mean, still today, that's something I have to work on, but there was really a big lack of confidence, especially related to body. And I studied ballet, and, I was not very flexible. I did not have the lines and all this body type that was like needed for ballet. And it was difficult for me to accept and learn like to accept my body. And there was a moment that I understood that it was not ballet itself, like as a form of dance, but it was dance. And then I found my way like expressing myself in different ways. What was really challenging as well, like for me with a lack of confidence as well, like going out and do auditions and these kind of things, and to just never feel like good enough. And it came to the point that I was just working hard for myself. Like I didn't aim to become like a famous or very good dancer or something. I just wanted to become the best of myself. And I went out there like thinking not being noticed, you know. I went out there going to an audition and knowing I would never be taken anyway because I'm not good enough and because it's just not my place, because I was looking up to a certain, let's say, stereotype or something like impressive to me at that time. And I think that was also lack of confidence. And so that was a big struggle for me, yes, to just go with that. And then obviously there was another part also, is like when I got a bit older, was also to accept how you look. And then you would have always people that would judge you and things like that. And I was very insecure. And it came also to the point that I really didn't like myself, like, and I was ashamed also of my face. Like I would, it's crazy. It's a very intimate thing that I'm telling you. But when I was young and I was in the school and in the ballet and so on, like people would call me an alien because I have the cheekbones and things like this, or, you know, like weird things. And I felt like, whoa, what a judging mad world, you know. And I still believed in the beauty, and I still believe that out there I would somehow find something that would fit me personally, you know, without aiming anything and without being like, okay, this is now I'm projecting myself into that. I was living day by day and just really focusing on myself and all the experiences, inspirations I got around me, which was very powerful. Yeah.
To ask you about the moment that you how and why did you start to create your own choreography?
Well, since a young age, I had this kind of push inside of myself, this inner voice that was very creative. Like when I was young, like 7 or 8 at the school, I would like create little theater pieces with my friends and direct them and be like, whoa, I'm a director and things like that. So this creative output, this need to somehow like go out with something was always there. And then also in schools and while studying, like I was always very interested to collaborate with other people and to try things. But this idea of exploration and experimentation was very interesting. And then I believe also for me, like I'm a little bit an introverted person, like a person that is a bit like with herself, dreaming, thinking a lot, like asking a lot of questions and things. And there was a need to get out of this, because since I was also not like the dancer that would, yeah, I go there and I go on audition and I can't express myself fully because there was something inside of me very scared about it, and I was not so confident with that. I found inside of this weakness something very strong that was like creating myself and not really caring about what it would be, because I was not expecting it to be good. Like, you know what I mean? I was not expecting it to be like, wow, it's going to be on a big stage. I was just doing it because it was a personal journey and just a need to share all these experiences. Yes.
One of your earliest works, The Hidden Garden, had big international acclaim. Could you talk to us about this work? What is it about?
Yes. So The Hidden Garden was created in 2016 during Talent Lab at Grand Théâtre de la Ville de Luxembourg. And for me, it was very clear, like I could not afford dancers. And yes, it was like, okay, I probably have to do solo and I have to put myself out there and, okay, let's take the challenge, like, because I believe challenges are very important and they make you grow. So I decided to make this solo, and due to my travels and my interests and where I grew up and how and all things, I wanted to create a piece that was like mixing this idea of identity and territory. There came also the grass and the garden, which is really standing for territory and all the different things that grow into it. And basically, just to talk about the piece itself, so The Hidden Garden is a mysterious place where reality and fantasy are intertwined. So it's a place where there is a creature running around, and he's kind of like suffocating, like kind of protecting his territory and so on. And there is also this idea of this social aspect of people desiring to have power about a territory and what that means for yourself also, and how inside of this and in general in life also this questioning, but when you are like this and you are very like with power and consuming and these kind of things, is it not like this that the simple things in life suffocated, they just disappear? So it's really kind of a piece that has a lot of different images and parts just jumping in like this, and it's really this idea to talk about all these different elements, and then also the whole like idea of consciousness, unconsciousness, the human mind. Yeah, it's yeah.
A lot of layers. Another work that kind of caught up my attention a little bit is Bolero. And in your version of Bolero, you chose to put on roller skates. And what was the idea behind that?
So I always had kind of in my mind, oh, I wanna try things out with Bolero. I was thinking in the beginning, like when I was thinking about the project itself, like when I think progress, I think about crescendo and I think about Ravel. Well, this is when William Cardoso, so the dancer, like I worked with him just before on a research, and I was like, that's him. And I took him in the studio and I created the Bolero. But obviously and often in my work, elements that stands for symbol and strong elements, like, you know, they are present. And for me, it was very clear that related to something that is about progress, about movement, and then at the same time about instability and struggle as well. My element were the roller skates, because they kind of stand as a symbol for it. And it was a very challenging but wonderful experience to go through it, because it's so much about control as well. And in this little territory, because he's again on a small white carpet, I use a lot of carpets, like things that mark territories, but as well mark lines and geometrics and these kind of things. I'm very interested into that. And it's also connected to architecture and building spaces inside of spaces. Yes, that was this element here. And the piece itself, so the Bolero is really about this man that is like in his own territory and trying to find his place inside of it, but stands again like a bit as a metamorpho, or like a symbol also, like the struggle actually to find your place somewhere. And when I analyzed it, come a bit back also to my life, you know, like how I struggled to find a place, and how yes, there is this risk, but with control and with like, yes, persistence, you can go with it. And obviously also like, because I love sports and stuff, like roller skates was my childhood. So I was always doing tricks and things like this. So yes, that was a bit the idea behind the Bolero. Yeah.
Where does the inspiration come for you from?
I think it comes from deep inside of my head and deep inside of my heart. I don't know. I only know one thing, is that I'm forcing nothing, you know, it's just there. And then obviously my inspiration is what feeds me from the outside, it's what I see, it's what I experience. These are my interests, the things I study, the things I read, the things I look at, the sensation, like what I smell. There is this huge diversity. What I do, the product I do, is just like passing my body like an experience, and this goes out in a certain way. Yes, there are a lot of things that inspire me.
I noticed the wide range of music that you're using, which goes from very classical pieces all the way to the techno, maybe some kind of urban sounds. And so I wanted to ask you, how do you choose music that you use for your creation? And how is this element important for you?
So music itself is very important in my work. It's really part of the whole creation process. From the research of sound, the discovery of sound, to really like the structuring, the sound design, because I try to do a bit of my own sound design. There is really a fascination towards music, but I don't like to say like there is music and there is dance and movement, because for me silence and also the inner music of the body groove is musicality, like, and I'm fascinated by musicality, and it's also something in a dancer or in general, this musicality as a wide definition, and not only sound you can hear by a musician or something. And then where does this come from? Again, I grew up in a place where there was Balinese music running, there was Led Zeppelin running, there was Prince running, there was African drums, there was everything. And I also grew up, you have to know, in Luxembourg, it's very multicultural. Like we have over 50%, I think even 70% people living in Luxembourg are actually not Luxembourgish in that sense. Like we have like a lot of communities here, and I grew up in the south of Luxembourg, and my neighbors, they're from Montenegro, they're from Portugal, from Italy, everywhere. So when I was playing outside in the garden, or we would have dinner in the terrace outside, there was Fado running. And then while traveling, of course, the high interest into learning this music and listening to them, and it's so diverse and so rich, and I also, you know, again, because I was not creating or afraid of getting judged, because I did not have any kind of expectation. I just did. So I felt I do, and I took myself the right, and I dared to just do what I felt right for myself. And even if sometimes it's like, oh my God, how do you just put some Wu-Tang Clan in your in your piece? And I'm like, well, why not, you know, because we are also now in the 20th century, and we're really trying also to break some rules and to also be open to people, also minorities and everything. And that's also for me as an artist, there is a voice I have, and I want to show like we should not have limitation, especially when it goes with music and movement and art and this kind of thing. So, and I think that music can represent a lot of things. It's playing so much also with the emotions and love. I just love music. I just decided as an artist to take myself the freedom to just instinctively take what feels right to me at the moment.
And how is it different for you to create something for the camera or something for the stage? Is there differences in the process?
This was again a coincidence. I was working back then in Australia. It was 2013, beginning 14, and I was hanging around with friends, and they were b-boys, and one has a camera, and I was like, okay, I want to use it. And suddenly I was dancing with the camera, and I was like, wow, that's so fascinating, and this whole digital world and multimedia, and yes, it just became like instinctively super interesting for me, and I was like, ooh, that's exciting, like I like it. And then also the fact like that you go with the camera and you choose, which is very different to choreography. If I present a choreography like on the stage and there is an audience, every audience looks in a different way, sees, you know, that it's, I cannot tell, now look at this beautiful leg getting up here, look, no, you missed it, you know, no. I'm just... In film, I have the feeling it's even more intimate what I'm sharing, because it's like you see through my eyes somehow, you know, and then in the editing process, again, like I can decide a bit how I play with the emotion. Of course, the interpretation and how you watch it is open to everyone, and that's important, and it has to be, but that's mainly the difference between both. So it's two different methods and ways to create and present dance, and I find them both very fascinating. And video really started like a hobby. I mean, you know what I mean? I was in the airport just cutting like on my old program some videos, and it was nothing like, yeah, it was for myself, for friends, and at some point it really became like a part of it, and they are connected as well. You know, I'm not saying about putting video and projection on stage necessarily. I'm just talking for me as an artist and in my artistic approach. They are very connected. Yes, and it's also so nice then to collaborate with musicians and to work on the sound again here as well. And then it was the learning process. Like I'm someone who likes to learn always, and I'm very open to discover things and to challenge myself somehow. So that was also because, you know, like filming and cutting, you have to learn, because I'm not so good in technology. But you go, and again, you have nothing to prove. You just do, and it's not about like, well, I'm gonna go on a big film festival, I'm gonna win an Oscar. No. You know, not at all. And very simple, because when I do my films, they're simple, you know, and I show them to professionals. Oh my God, the light and here and the focus. But it's not about that. I'm not trying to become a professional videographer in that sense, you know, like fully occupied, like having the best programs and cameras. It's more than that. And I've learned also like how much it is really like the moment and how you take and how much you're able also to express with the moment, because a photography or a video is a moment capture and you keep it for always, and choreography is there, you know, and it goes. These are the biggest differences between both, and still you can see when you watch a video, or even if I watch sometimes like short films and so, every time I would watch them again, it's a different way, you know, and it's just fascination for discovering and again just showing the beauty of dance and the people in front of me, the humans, more than anything else.
Well, talking about humans, one of your movies is titled Nilinda. What was the context behind this movie, or the reason to make this movie?
Again, it was a meeting with a dancer in Taiwan at Taipei National University of the Arts. I saw him and there was a very strong connection. I found him very special, and again, in my work in general, I work a lot with identity, territory, like a lot of things. And I saw this person who was like, for me, about gender identification. I found this so interesting because he really has this very feminine side, but this also very masculine side. And I was like, oh, wow. And I told him like, let's maybe go and just film something. And that's how it happened. So, and the film itself, so Nilinda, it's in reverse his name. His name is Andy Lin, which is a very male name. And I just reversed it and it became Nilinda, which is something like, it has a lot of poetry and like softness and kind of a bit of a feminine side. And that's where the twist is in the whole video. Actually, it's about this young person who is trying to find himself and trying to gain recognition for who he is, you know, not only as a dancer but in general, because yes, and then to find his place with 7 billion humans on this planet, and that was it. So it's very simple and carries messages and just shows today again the different facets of a person, and that you can never judge someone, you know, and a bit this idea also to not judge someone yes, based on a cover or something, and also like say no to stereotypes and say no to classification of certain people and these things. So yes,
one element that I also of course obviously notice in your work is the sunglasses. What about it? Is that something what is it?
So the first time I really used the sunglasses was with Samantha Solo. The piece is about the separation and about walls, so it's very political in one sense, but also very personal. And there is this very importance to hands, because for me, hands, and also in general, they stand for responsibility. Like I, as the human, build a wall, so I create a conflict, I create a separation. Also, when I created a character, which is like a bit this comic, strange creature, you don't know it's a woman or a man. I wanted to be like super like sober. I didn't want anyone to recognize me. I didn't want to see my hair, my face, and just to really like cover this completely up. And then as well cover the eyes. And why the eyes? Because the eyes are like a mirror to our soul, you know. And if I show my eyes, I show so much for myself, and I just cover them, and it's really like a cut. And at the same time, these sunglasses have a mirror, and there is this idea of mirror, and the mirror, not necessary to my soul, it is as well, but also the mirror of society, the mirror of our actions and responsibility. So there was this idea also that in the sunglasses, people could see themselves, and there is this idea of this reflection. So that's really the main idea why they are the glasses. And then of course they come back. Like for instance, in the Hidden Garden, it's very easy. Yeah? It's a sunbathing scene, and for me, sunbathing, I put on sunglasses. Of course, they stay again for this idea of, you know, covering up and having this certain thing. So these are like notions that come back in my pieces. I'm not putting them just to put them, you know, and they are really not necessary in every piece. It's deeper, and it's also a bit more intimate, but I want to share it with you because I think it's very interesting, and it comes back again to my life and how things went. Is again this idea of being scared to show myself, not thinking that I'm good enough to show myself, and also having like sometimes this stereotype of, oh yeah, you're the blonde girl with this face and blah blah blah, and you take too much present when we see your face. This kind of really strange thing that really hurted me when I was young, because I never wanted to like show this or something. It's just me, you know, I was born like this. And so there was always this a bit of conflict with myself, like I need to hide, like what is that? And I think that was, I don't say a traumatizing because that's too exaggerated, but there is something that inside of me, you know. And when I analyzed in general also Samantha solo, I see this a bit of broken part inside of myself, and I realize you are covering yourself up because you were also hiding, you know. I came out there and I perform, and you don't see me. My long blonde hair is gone. I have a long coat. I have shoes on, knee pads. I have big sunglasses, and I just felt like free. I felt suddenly like, whoa, I'm not getting judged how I look or how I should look or whatever. I just was there, and I could deeply jump into this character and really dance like strongly. So to be honest, this is also part of it. So, you know, I go and search things, but when you research and when you work on your concept and when you create things, you have to admit that things come from somewhere, you know. And while analyzing, you see in fact, wow, oh my God, maybe actually there's this desire also at this point to really hide myself, you know. And then the concept in general, you know, why are you talking about separations and these and walls? And it's very interesting. It's very interesting as a personal process to go through, and this whole psychology and a bit of this, and to really see when you create and the choreography and what you do, like how much it is related to your experiences. Again, I'm saying it again and again, and these inspirations and yes.
Artist that you would love to collaborate with?
Like the word artist, what does that mean, you know? There are many things I want to work with, and people, you know, I'm saying it can be a grandma sitting in the Mekong River, and it can be William Forsythe, you know, like it's such a range of things that are so strong, you know. And it's not just those one, of course, who have like fantastic things to say and to share, also musician, but it's also just the simple things, you know, like. And then in general, I must say that there are 3 female choreographers that I found very inspiring. Of course, it's Pina. I mean, when I was young and I saw her pieces, I think I was like just, oh. And then there is people like Crystal Pride or Sharon Ayal, and I just think that they're really important today for here and for our generation, because they stand for female like strength, and they're very empowering, and they are so fierce, you know, and they take risks, and they stick with an idea, and it's beautiful. And I'm not talking just about the work, because it's not like I'm trying to look all the time and go and see. It's just in general to see how they move people, you know. Another thing, like a dream, I share it with you. It's a dream, and I'm not expecting it. I always kind of making one day a piece for Paris Opera Ballet, and I don't know why. It was always like, oh, I dreamt of seeing it on stage. And no, but it's not, it's a dream, and I share it with you. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Would you talk to us about your dance therapy and work with kids that you do, and why this is important for you?
Yes, so working with people that are not necessarily professional in dance, and that it's a different context. It's extremely important to me, and it's extremely rich. Sometimes I have the feeling in the professional world, like that dance itself and the expression of what dance means. I'm not talking about technique and stuff. Of course, this has to be there, but I'm talking about dance itself. It feels like a bit suffocated. And when I come and work with people in a room, or let's say here with young children that sometimes have had like bad experience in their life, and you just start like doing this and dancing with them, and you see this thing. This is a little thing. It's just magical. And for me, to be honest, the strongest experiences are the most simple ones. And this is for me, like, I always want to tell people also, and professionals, to remind, like, what does dance mean? And I strongly believe that dance also in education and generally in our society and cultures, it is such a strong thing to really express yourself and free yourself. And I think that we dancers are very lucky to be able to do that, you know, and we should never forget it and not lose it, you know, what it is. And that's why I find a nice balance, you know, when I do this. It's like, it's, of course it's sometimes difficult, you know, it's human, you know, nothing is beautiful. Like, you have the top of the iceberg, it seems like shining, but there is a lot more, you know, or in professional field or with here. But these are just moments, and when you see the power of dance and how it can really like change things, it's just stunning. And then all the also in young audience, how the children react, it's so pure, and it's just like for me it's like I don't know, silk for the soul. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned a lot about this self-doubt as a person on stage who presents itself and its work. But what about as a creator, as a choreographer?
As an artist and choreographer, it's on you to decide what is constructive, what can you take to grow out of it, and what is a benefit for you, you know? I mean, critique is difficult. Yes. You know, even if I say this now, I'm the first one if someone comes like, oh my God, you know, it hurts us, you know, but you're trying to take a distance to it. But what is very important is to not start like changing things to please to someone or something, because you are going right in the wrong direction. And this is like being strong, actually. This is like daring to stay in your position and to also trust, you know, your guts and your like what it says, but still having a very open and clear like ear to hear things, because we are growing every day. Nothing is perfect. Our pieces are not perfect. The dancers, me, no one, you know. And it's like just, it is an exchange that will always happen, because as long as you like put things out there, you will have a reaction. So I think it is always hard, because you will never please everyone, and especially if you do a bit more, let's say, a bit more special things, or you try things out that are not so new. It is part of it, you know, and you grow out of it. Yeah.
So why dance is important?
It's also interesting to analyze what does the definition of importance or importance mean, you know? Is it more important than or less? I just believe that dance is essential, and not dance as a form or as a technique, but dance as a way of expressing. I believe really, really strongly that people out there, deep inside of themselves, everywhere, there has to be some kind of an artist that wants to be creative. And you can be creative while cooking, you can be creative while playing golf, you can be creative while being the most beautiful ballerina, you know? But it's about like expressing yourself and letting things out, and that dance is full with that. That's why for me dance is important, yes, and it's essential, and dance is for everyone. And I believe there is one thing I always say is, what moves us makes us the mover we are, and I think this little phrase like says so much about important dance. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you're all well. And I sent you like the best regards here from Luxembourg. And that's it. Big kiss.